Let's work. Turn it down and listen to the experts. Gotta give a shout to the Talking Junk Network. Showing love, hosting battles, playing dope joints. The break room topics always staying on point. Never disappoint. We'll never need a makeover. We here for the takeover like Jehovah. Talking Junk break room takeover on the podcast. Dropping bomb facts on demand like Comcast. Now drop a comment whenever they're going live. Hit the YouTube channel right now and go subscribe. Peace.
Talking Junk Network,
where entertainment lives.
Welcome to Talking Junk.
I'm your host, Jason Melendez.
Live now every week on Friday.
Talking Junk.
A multitude of professionals in different aspects, different walks of life.
You have to come on and talk junk like a normal person.
Me and my team, whenever we link up, they're gonna be drink up. We still gonna relax and have few glasses when there's things to think about. Like I'm nice with the boss when I tend to the boss, and I'm not talking drink ups. So tell the bartender that tended the bar to please pass me a big cup up. And tell that waitress that's waiting on us to put a little ice in it. Now watch the ice become weightless like the spaceships that I be sitting in. No wait and listen, no, they're waiting for that tropical twist that'll tickle your taste buds. Now taste some. Yo, I insist it's the drizzle.
Welcome to Talking Junk, the podcast that comes to you live every week with a brand new professional to tell you about their life's journey, how they got to where they're at in life, and what are they going to do for you. I'm your host, Jason Melendez, and tonight we got a great guest for you. Again, I'm sorry that I haven't been here every week. Juggling 2 podcasts, a 9 to 5, and moving basically across country kind of takes a toll on you. So I had to take a little bit of a break. But what better life transformation coach who has her hands in Neuro Linguistic Programming, Hypnotherapy, Mindfulness and Meditation, and is here to tell us how she can uncover subconscious blocks in 10 seconds. Miss Nikki Nicholas. How you doing tonight, Nikki?
I am fantastic. How are you doing, Jason?
Pretty good, pretty good. Did I miss anything?
No, that was perfect. That was great. And yes, in 10 seconds.
Now, before you tell us how to uncover subconscious blocks, what exactly are subconscious blocks?
Yeah, so essentially we have, I'm hearing like a little sound in my earphone. So essentially when you think about your consciousness, most people don't really think about this very often, but there's the conscious part of your mind, which neuroscientists have found that it actually only is 5% of who we are in our actions and our thoughts, behaviors in life. So 95% of the rest of us, of our actions and thoughts in life, are actually subconscious. So that means that 95% of what we actually do in life is completely outside of our conscious awareness. And so what I do is I understand that 95% of us, that 95% subconscious portion. And so when you think about it, so a good way to describe it for me is when you think about wanting to do something in life, like say you have a goal that you really, really want to achieve, but you just can't get yourself to actually do it. It's almost like there's a part of you that wants to move forward, your conscious intention. And then there's the subconscious part of you, but most people don't know that it's the subconscious part, but they just know there's a part of me that can't actually get myself to move forward, and I don't know why. The alternative is true. The opposite is true as well, where you just keep doing something over and over and over and over again, like say overeating, for example, that you really don't want to do, but for some reason you can't stop yourself from doing it. So essentially what that is there are certain things subconsciously within you that are either stopping you from doing what you want to do or causing you to do what you don't want to do. And so I essentially understand those two parts, and I work with the subconscious mind via our conscious intention, and then kind of let them become aligned, essentially, so that you can consciously want to do something and then you follow through with it, or the opposite. So that's essentially it.
So you evict the laziness.
Pretty much, because when actually, even just in that, so when you talk about laziness, so this is kind of getting into the understanding how I do find subconscious blocks in 10 seconds. So the subconscious block would be that subconscious part of you that is stopping you from moving forward. And laziness would be actually a subconscious block. So the way that I say that I can do it in 10 seconds or less is, for example, when you think about, say, wanting to go to the gym, you really, really want to go to the gym, but for some reason you can't. And maybe that is laziness in this case. So when you think about it, when you think about laziness, most people don't realize what's taking place at the subconscious level, but in an instant, you can find it. You can find the block. You can find what's happening. So laziness is actually a sensation in your body. This is where the meditation and mindfulness comes into play, where if you actually take the time to sit in meditation to find what's taking place at an internal level, you can see all the different nuances, all the different layers of what's going on subconsciously, like the sensation of laziness that is holding you back. Because essentially it's our emotions that are the subconscious part of us that are causing us to go forward with something or hold ourselves back from it. And laziness is, I guess, not an emotion, but it's the same kind of thing.
It can definitely be influenced by emotion, laziness. I can see that. Now, does you unblocking the subconscious have to do anything with your hypnotherapy?
Yeah, so it's all kind of intertwined, what I do. So essentially, my story is that I learned Neuro Linguistic Programming, and hypnotherapy is kind of part of that modality, and understanding the way that we process our different our thoughts, our emotions, basically every single sense that we have on the outside of our body, like touch, scent, all that. We have the same thing on the inside of our body, or in our internal world, essentially. So we have internal, when you think about, for example, what does a rose smell like? You can internally imagine what a rose smells like, whatever your interpretation of that is. Or the same thing, if you think of a memory, you'll see maybe pictures in your mind, or play movies, or everybody kind of does things differently at an internal level. And essentially it's looking at that internal level and understanding how we're coding things at that subconscious level, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. Now, linguistic programming, what exactly, how can you explain that to individuals that may not know anything about what we're talking about today?
Mm-hmm. So essentially it's just understanding language patterns. So the way that I speak, for example, in any given situation, the way that I speak will indicate how I am processing certain things within me. Some people are very visual. So like if you and I are having a conversation and one of us is speaking and the other one's speaking and we're just not understanding what each other are saying, typically it's because you're kind of speaking the language that you are used to, which might be very visual. Or, and maybe I'm speaking very kinesthetically, which means I'm very feeling based, which I am. So I might be talking about my emotions. I might be talking about the feelings, the sensations within me, but there are some people who actually, well, they think they don't feel emotions. I've yet to determine if that's the case or not. I haven't had enough data or, done enough research to know if that's actually true, but I have come across people who say they can't feel emotions. So talking to someone about emotions, they wouldn't necessarily get what I'm saying. And then there's also some people who say they can't see images in their mind. And again, I don't know if that's 100% true or not, but I have run across people who have said that. And so for me being kinesthetic, talking about my feelings, and if you're very visual and we're like the opposite, then it's like, well, how are you, like, it's hard to interpret. And so basically with neurolinguistic programming, it's about understanding how people process information and tapping into that, like understanding the way that you process information. That's going to be the way that I'm going to speak to you. and, just understanding, or maybe touching on a little bit of visual, a little bit of kinesthetic, all that kind of stuff, and just understanding how to unravel things and speak about things to a certain person. And then you get into the hypnotherapy part of things. And I also do conversational hypnosis. So just understanding where I am taking the person's consciousness with my words as I'm speaking. For example, the subconscious mind can't actually understand negations. So if I were to say to you, don't think of a zebra, that's impossible. You have to think of some kind of representation of a zebra in order to make sense of what I just said. So essentially, it's about understanding where I am taking somebody with my verbiage, and doing it with volition, doing it in a way that I can create change through either conversational hypnosis or different processes that I take people through, essentially.
So how would that work exactly with somebody that doesn't see inner pictures, inner images?
Yeah. So there's different techniques that you can use based on what the person's primary modality is. So if they don't see pictures, like, for example, for me, I see pictures, but I'm primarily kinesthetic. So for me, the way that I do it is, say somebody has a problem where, I don't know, give me a problem.
They want to stop smoking.
You want to stop smoking. Okay. So for that person, I would kind of look at what their process is, because there's always a process that starts and ends with them not wanting to smoke, getting to the point where they want to, and actually end up, craving the cigarette and all that kind of stuff. So with a person who is more kinesthetic, it would be more so they would feel a feeling. So if they don't want to smoke and they're consciously thinking, I don't want to smoke, but then they see someone with a cigarette, this is maybe a bad example because I don't think it's mostly kinesthetic. I think it's also like olfactory and gustatory. Like you smell it in your mind and you're like, ooh, or you taste it, or you get that craving where you feel it. Some people feel it like in their chest where it's like, oh, I want that. I get that with tea lattes. So basically for me, this is my process. So it's typically not just one modality. And that's why I'm like, because for me, like, for example, with like, I was addicted to Starbucks back in the day. So for me, I would see the sign, or I would see a Starbucks cup, and then that would prompt me to imagine myself drinking it and the taste of it. And then I would get like a feeling of, I want that, like that craving. And that craving is what kind of pulls you towards the thing. And then maybe you feel, negative because you don't have that thing. You feel the sense of lack. You feel, uncomfortable and some kind of discomfort. And then you take that action to fill that lack or that discomfort.
Could it be contributed to a sense of euphoria at that point?
Yeah, depending on the person. And that's the thing, is that even euphoria, that's a sensation too. Like when you go down and you actually get into meditation and you sit there, you'll find that every single thing that you think, every thought that you think, is tied to a sensation within you. Again, I don't know. There probably are people out there who don't feel the feelings, but again, I don't 100% know if that is the case. But for the most people, they have all of these things going on internally at the same time, whether it's, any of the five senses. But you can, in meditation, specifically pinpoint the different sensations within you. And then you can work on those sensations in order to release certain things like the cravings.
Now, I know you're pretty skeptical on these people that say they can't do certain things in their mind, like see pictures. I just found out recently that there are people that don't have inner monologues. Have you ever?
Oh, funny that you say that. So I have trained myself not to. For the longest time, yeah, right? Weird. So for the longest time, I would talk to myself all the time. And then I started noticing. So I actually took 1.5 years off work specifically to go into meditation. And I spent 10 plus hours a day doing that. And so this is where most of this comes from, aside from my training in NLP and all that. This was the primary thing of my experiential learning in understanding this stuff. So basically, Ah, crap. I just totally lost. What was the question that you were just saying?
It's all right. I'm glad you did that, because so often on this show, I have brain farts and forget exactly what I was just thinking.
Was just gonna say, like, I didn't get enough sleep last night, so I'm like,
I don't think I ever get enough sleep, so don't even worry. I asked about people that don't have inner monologues, and you
Don't
said
have
you
inner
stopped
monologues.
yours.
Yes. So in that 1.5 year period of time, I was realizing that, like, I was kind of dissecting my mind, all the different thoughts that came up. And I was like, okay, there are certain thoughts that are negative, and I was kind of trying to understand and unravel why negative thinking happens. And so I saw every negative thought has a negative sensation in the body, and so I would work on those things and I would release them. But in turn, I started to pay really close attention to my inner dialogue, my inner monologue, and I started noticing, okay, I'm beating myself up. And so I would just stop, and I would stop the thought and just focus on releasing. There's different techniques to release it. And it got to the point where I was like, I I realized that I could just I realized that there were certain times where I didn't think. It's almost like, yeah, like when something happens really quickly in your life, like say a snake crosses your path, as you know, that happens. Say a snake crosses your path and you have to think really fast. And it's just like snap, snap, snap. It's almost like a next level thinking, but it's deeper. And so you have to like think on your toes and just go, 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 go in the moment. And I had a moment like that. And then I realized, hey, I didn't need words in order to do that, but I got to the same place. So it was instant. And so I'm like, hey, I bet I could do that more often. And so then I became conscious of like kind of, peeling back the layers of the onion and removing what wasn't necessary. And then I just kind of kept doing it. And I'm like, well, this is working really well. And got to the point where I don't anymore. It's like ever, which is really cool. And it's just like super fast thinking, which is
So
better in my opinion.
You don't have any more intrusive thoughts, or you don't have a inner monologue anymore.
So I can say stuff to myself. Like maybe I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. Like, but it's not the intrusive thoughts. So I don't ever have intrusive thoughts. I do have intrusive emotions, which is just something that's typically tied to the thoughts. So I've let go of those thoughts, but the emotions, for some situations, are still there. But again, I've done so much work on releasing those emotions too, that typically the ones that were bothering me the most are not there anymore. Like, for example, I used to have massive fear of public speaking. And now I'm doing this kind of stuff all the time, but it's purely because I worked on those negative feelings. And because honestly, it was the negative feelings that was stopping me so much, is just that fear. Right. And yeah, I just don't have them anymore ever since releasing them. So that's it.
So would you say from your, I guess, research or journey, would it be safe to say that your inner monologue is at least 80% responsible for some of those intrusive thoughts?
If my inner monologue is, honestly, the way that I see it, I think it's kind of backwards of how we're talking about it. So essentially, let me just kind of go over the structure of things. So essentially, the very first thing that happens is you have beliefs, and that is what everything within you is built on. I believe I am, a good person. I believe I am capable of doing this and not capable of doing that. And so our beliefs build our emotions. So if I believe that this animal is going to hurt me, then I'm going to have an emotion telling me, get the hell out of the way when this animal is there. And those emotions are what prompt you to have certain thoughts that are going off in your mind. And so that's where repetitive negative thoughts come in. And then the thoughts dictate your actions in life. So more for me is that I would say more like 95% of my intrusive thoughts are gone. And now it's just the remaining emotions that I have left to work on that I haven't processed out quite yet. So, yeah. So I do have an inner monologue. Like if, something is really cool, but it's rare that I use it, to be honest. It's just, there's no need for it. It's just like instant thinking versus the slower way of doing it.
So do you think we're all born with an inner monologue, or kind of develop it from the experiences that we have and go through?
Well, I think it's developed purely because we don't know our own language until we learn it. So we have to think in some way. And I feel like it is learned. And then I guess some people just put the time into dissecting it and then removing what's not necessary. But I do find it a lot quicker. So I think in nature, it probably is that way.
Okay. Now, I know we kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there on the inner monologue, but uncovering the subconscious blocks. Now, how do you start that process?
Yeah. So typically what I do is I say, give me a problem that you're dealing with in life. So I don't know if you feel like sharing something, or it could be hypothetical.
Let's see. Problem I'm having in life. I cannot find an apartment at the moment.
Okay. Okay. And how is that a problem?
I need to get my own place.
Okay. You need to get your own place. Do you feel like you're going to at some point?
Yes. I feel like what's out there is already meant for me. I just need to find it.
Yeah. And so what emotions come up for you when you experience that situation?
Anxiety.
Anxiety because you have the fear that you won't get the place.
That I won't find one.
That you won't find. Yeah. Yeah. So when you think about that, where do you feel the anxiety within you?
In my chest.
Okay. And so that feeling in your chest, is it heavy or is it light?
It's electrifying, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. So it's like a buzzing kind of?
Almost.
Okay. And would you say it's moving or is it still? I know it's electric, so maybe just moving like that.
It kind of expands itself.
It expands itself. Okay, so it starts in the chest and then goes out a little bit.
Yeah, like
Okay.
I feel it in my shoulders afterwards, like it gets tense.
Yeah, yeah. And so if it had a color, what color would you call it?
Probably blue.
Okay. So that is just how you code subconsciously that specific flavor of emotion. And so essentially anything that we're anxious about in life. So we basically kind of like have a pact with ourselves with everything in life when it comes to our prior experience. So we have an experience and maybe it made us a little bit fearful or feel a certain way in the past where it's like, well, we might not get what we want. And so that takes place. And then as you live your life, you see the potential for things not to work out. And so you have created at a subconscious level that mechanism to tell you, okay, you need to either stop what you're doing because it's not going to work, or proceed with caution, or, maybe change your strategy, or basically that feeling is there, that anxiety, that discomfort is there to tell you something. So if you were to tap into that feeling and just feel that feeling of anxiety, I hate to put you into that right now, but so tap into that feeling of anxiety. What is it telling you about the situation?
I'm not sure. It's confusing. Maybe it's like what you said. Maybe it's a form of muscle memory, and I've gone through this emotion in the past, and it's just my body's way of telling me, slow down.
Yeah, yeah. And so oftentimes when I'm working with people, we tap into the emotion and it's like, okay, what is that emotion telling you? Because you're putting it there for a reason. And then we determine, okay, if it's telling you to slow down, then you have to kind of go within yourself and determine, okay, am I okay with slowing down? So would you be okay with slowing down in the way that, no, okay. So you don't want to slow down.
No, I gotta go pedal to the
Okay.
metal.
So that's the thing, is that it's showing me that there's an incongruency between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. So for some reason from your past, you have created that trigger for yourself, that prompt telling you to, and I mean, potentially to slow down. And internally at a conscious level, you don't want to slow down. So that incongruency is halting you in life in ways that you don't prefer. And so all you really need to do is you need to realign your conscious intention with your subconscious mind through essentially just releasing that emotion so that when you want to move forward with something, it doesn't stop you anymore. So that you are completely in alignment and you can move in the direction that you want to move in.
Now, let's say it's a person who has a tougher situation. Like maybe they're in a situation where they need to get out and they're not safe. How does one go about taking that subconscious block off in order to get their themselves, excuse me, I almost had a brain fart myself, themselves to safety?
Yeah. So in that kind of situation, it can be tricky because there can be multiple components to it, because there can be feelings of fear of leaving. There can be, the fear of all that could take place after leaving, what all could go down. So essentially it's about tapping into the feeling, find out what it's telling you. It's like, okay, can you mitigate those risks? Can you do all the things you need to do to take action to make sure that you are okay? And if not, maybe it is warranted. Maybe you need to hold off. Like, it's really about, like, this thing is here. It doesn't have all the answers, obviously, because sometimes the feelings can be antiquated emotions from our past, but sometimes what it's bringing up is warranted, and it's about having that discernment, because maybe it's telling you it's not the right time to do it. Maybe it's telling you to hold off, or maybe it's telling you look in different directions. So it's really about the specific person's circumstances and dissecting it enough, sitting with it enough to know. There could also be multiple other layers of different emotions at play. Like, if I leave, say, this person, I will feel lack within me. I will feel loneliness within me. I will not be able to find another partner, that kind of thing. Then you need to also go into those emotions, because fear of lack, fear of loneliness, fear of whatever else, those are childhood wounds that you can also process out. And those are coming up for a reason as well. So there could be multiple layers to something that big. And it's important to look at all of those aspects so that the person doesn't end up making it a lot harder on themselves than it needs to be.
So now that we kind of seemingly have the awareness of the subconscious, how can they start to break free from all those negative patterns?
Yeah. So if somebody has a pattern that, or a problem that they're looking to resolve, I would say the number one thing to do is meditate. I know some people have a hard time. I had a hard time meditating for years. I never did it.
I tried it before, and I always fell asleep.
Oh, yeah. No, that's totally normal. Do you do it sitting up?
I've done it sitting up. When I tried to do it, it was sitting up.
Oh, okay. And you still fell asleep?
And I still fell asleep. I mean, that may be because of sleep apnea, but I still fell asleep.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, were you really tired? I would say, honestly, just keep trying. So one thing that I like to tell people to practice is so meditation is essentially you are focusing all of your attention on something, or you're focusing all of your attention on nothing. So a good way to practice is just literally like set your alarm for 10 times a day and just 10 seconds, clear your mind. And any thought that comes up, any emotion that comes up, just witness it, see it there, and then just like a cloud in the sky, it just goes by, and just sit, clear your mind for 10 seconds. And then gradually over so many days, so many weeks, you will strengthen that muscle essentially. But the way that I like to teach people to meditate is more therapeutic, is more about going into these subconscious blocks, these feelings, because I am obviously very kinesthetic. So if somebody has a problem that they're going through in their life, what I say is think about the problem, because as you think about the problem, you are accessing the memory of what that problem is tied to. So like an experience from your past, I wonder how I should put this in a more, because there's so many types of problems out there.
No, trust me, I understand, because I took some training on ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and I found that a lot of those, I don't want to say memories because they're more than just memories. Well, a lot of those experiences will affect you in your daily life depending on what you're going through.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. You hit the nail on the head. So essentially, we get triggered by things in our outer world. Those triggers make us feel an intense emotion, so our inner world. And that's all tied to the past experience through memory, which is just a neurosynaptic pathway. So what an emotion is when you have, okay, this is my past. I don't know what side it's on for you. Imagine this is the past, and this is a trauma that you've had. As that experience takes place, a new neurosynaptic pathway is formed, or a memory. And as that memory is formed, a neurochemical response is formed in your body that is tied to that experience. And that is like feeling, emotion, that kind of thing. So that's why if something outside of you triggers that feeling, it's tied to that past experience. And so that's how tapping in through emotion can actually, you can process it out through that same thing, essentially. Yeah.
Now, I do hear that phrase a lot, clear your mind. It doesn't sound like something that's very easy to do. So how could one start to clear their mind and quiet their inner monologue?
So in all honesty, like, yes, I always say the 10-second thing, start like that. But when it comes to meditation, my favorite thing is doing the work. Like, so when you think of a problem or when you're triggered by something, you'll feel that neurochemical response, that negative feeling in your body. So close your eyes, focus on that feeling, entirely on that feeling. And as you do, just get curious about the feeling, because even curiosity about the feeling changes the neurosynaptic pathway. It changes the pattern, because normally we feel these negative emotions and we run from them and we don't want to feel them. But if you are doing something different, if you are exploring it out of curiosity and you're just looking at every single part of it and you just bring it up, I tell people, amplify the feeling. It's just a sensation. And the only reason it's there is because it's looking to be processed out. Something triggered it so that you can process it out. So give it your awareness and amplify it. And actually, something that it's the easiest technique you could possibly do in the world, is send it love, because that is the opposite of what you would normally do with a negative emotion. Most people just, again, run from it or don't want anything to do with it. But if you say, I love you, internally to the feeling, that will help it to process out. And you can actually see it in your inner eye. You can see it releasing as it happens.
Who would have thought that Disney's Inside Out was correct?
Yeah, I never actually saw that one.
Oh, maybe you should.
I like it. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Now, for everybody that's wondering themselves, how can they even get into this? Where can they find you for that help?
So they can check me out on my website. So nikkinicholas.com, NIKKINICHOLAS.com. Oh, beautiful. Right there. Yes. And this is my specialty, getting people past the problems that they experience in their lives. It's much, 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 much easier than you think. And again, like even just saying about say I love you to the feeling, like there's other techniques that are just as easy, and they're very powerful. That actually, so there's one specific one that got me past my fear of public speaking. Was I was terrified of speaking in meetings at work. And so I had just learned this technique. It's called Ho'oponopono. And so I was in my meetings at work and I was feeling all these negative feelings of like, oh my God, I'm not speaking up. I need to talk. Oh, they said something I should have said, blah, blah, blah. And I felt in my solar plexus, I felt this horrible feeling of like fear to speak up and just inadequacy and all that kind of stuff. And so in the meetings for 2 days, I would just sit there and I would say in my head to the feeling, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. So that's Ho'oponopono. I know it sounds crazy, but this is what I was
Ho'oponopono?
Ho'oponopono. It's an old Hawaiian prayer.
Ho'oponopono. Okay.
Yeah. So you pinpoint the sensation with your mind. You focus on the feeling And you say those 4 phrases. And then whichever phrase resonates the most, that's the one you say over and over and over and over. So this is when I was first starting out on this stuff. And then I kept saying the one that resonated the most was, I love you. So I would focus on the feeling and I said, I love you, I love you, I love you. And instantly you'll notice it dissipates. You'll notice the sensation shifts. And it's mind blowing how quickly just giving your awareness to it will shift things. And that is literally what got rid of that feeling that was stopping me from speaking in my meetings. And then from then on, I was like an all-star leading all of them and got promoted and all that jazz. So it worked out really well. Yeah.
Have you gotten anybody with anger issues that use this successfully?
Yes. So anger, I'm glad you actually brought that up, because anger is what I call a shield emotion. So it's much if you ever get angry, so say
Oh, that's always.
so if you ever get angry, the reason you're getting angry isn't because you're mad. First of all, it's actually because you're sad underneath it. You're hurt by something that somebody did. But it's a much more socially acceptable emotion to portray to people because it's strong and powerful. It makes us feel very, very good about ourselves, very certain. And so that's what we typically as a society go in, is that anger, that frustration, annoyance, that kind of thing, because it's acceptable by us and by others. And so whenever someone's angry, instantly I'm like, okay, that's a shield. So when you think about the way, not getting angry, when you think about what that person did to you, how did it hurt? How, like, where do you feel sadness within you, or some flavor of sadness? Because that is the root. If you're focusing on the anger, that's not going to be as powerful. It's almost like, because subconscious blocks can be stacked. They can be either simultaneously come up. So maybe you feel one in your shoulders, one in your chest at the same time. They can be sequential. So maybe one in your chest comes up and then your shoulders, or they can be stacked. And in the case of the anger and the sadness, that's a stacking. So if you're targeting the anger, you're missing the root of what it is, which is typically some kind of childhood trauma. And if you hit the root,
always back to those aces.
100%. So if you're getting the root, then instantly this dissolves too. And I actually worked with somebody today with anger issues, not anger issues, but like he was going through, a situation with anger. And every single time the root is this, and it's always something about our past, 100%. And it's that the reason that we never actually look there or process it out is because the anger is distracting us. Because when our attention is focused on this, we don't give our attention to this, and we don't want to because it's painful. And so that's what I spent that year and a half going into, was this. And that was hard, going into like the weakest weaknesses within myself, and you come out stronger because of it. So it's worth it.
Yes. Suppressed emotions are a bitch.
Yeah.
Now, I know I don't want to take up too much of your time, because I know you're a very busy woman and you have a lot of blocks to unblock for people's heads. What would you say as first of all, you have a lot of things under your belt. So what is your official title, Miss Nicholas?
Yes. So life transformation coach, and also mental and emotional wellness expert. So basically I kind of do the full gamut, where it's like, essentially I take people through, if someone's unsatisfied in life in general, we look at that and we go, where do you want to be? And how do we map it out to get there? How do we map out the path to get there? But along the way, there's going to be bumps. There's going to be, turmoil, inner turmoil. There's going to be like fears. There's going to be inadequacies. There's going to be self-doubt. There's going to be all kinds of hard emotions. Also, like, again, tied to those hard emotions is the negative self-talk, beating yourself up. And most people have no idea why. It's perpetual and they can't stop it. But essentially, when you know what to do, you just, you get the goal of what you want to achieve. And then you take a step, or maybe even the first step, it's like, oh my God, I'm terrified to take that step. So you're apprehensive, but I know what to do about apprehension. It's like, okay, where do you feel the apprehension? Okay, let's release that. And now you're not apprehensive anymore. take that step. And now you're taking another step and it's like, okay, now that's scary. It's like, okay, well, just release that fear and move forward. And every single step you take, you will feel a negative emotion because you're going into places, it's uncharted territory. You are building a life that you want to live, the life that you've always wanted to live. And so in order to do that, you have to shed old parts of yourself that were keeping you stuck in the first place. But it's essentially just know your consciousness, know that whatever you're facing is really nothing. It's literally sensations that are holding you back. And once you see that, you literally have, not literally, actually they changed the meaning of literally, so it is literally, you have the keys to your life because you just move forward in the ways that you want to and nothing can obstruct you. So yeah.
Wow. My next question was, what would your message be? But that seems like a beautiful message all on its own.
Yes, thank you. Definitely.
Now, you didn't leave our viewers empty-handed, which is very rare on this show. You gave everybody a little freebie. Why don't you explain your freebie?
Yes. So I have a free video for whoever wants it. And it is essentially on how to find the subconscious blocks within you. Kind of goes a little bit into where subconscious blocks come from, why they're there, and how you can find them within you so that you could potentially release them. You can use the technique that I just gave you. Actually, it is the #1 technique that I give to people who are first starting out. So yeah, that is free to you guys if you so choose to accept.
And not only will you see that link right there scrolling across your screen, but depending on where you're watching from, you will see it also in the comment box. So be sure to copy and paste it into your browser and go ahead and get that freebie. It's going to help you in the long run. It definitely is.
Definitely.
Well, thank you, Nikki. You've been a wonderful guest, and I hope to have you back on sometime.
Yeah, for sure. This was a lot of fun and really great meeting you. Great convo.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
All right, you have a great night. Let me close this out and I'll be right back with you.
Beautiful. You as well.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Miss Nikki Nicholas was here. She left a lasting impression, which is exactly what your past does. And if you've taken anything away from this conversation, is that everything has an underlying sensation or meaning. And you ought to go back and reflect on that. See exactly what's bothering you and what's keeping you from taking that step. I like to think of it as the roller coaster effect. Not a lot of people like that adrenaline rush in their stomach when you're going down a roller coaster. But to get to the end of that, you have to go through that emotion. So be sure to go to Nikki's website, which is nickinicholas.com. Hit that contact information there. Let her reach out to you. You reach out to her. Get these subconscious blocks taken away. Ping pong them like Tetris. I guess that's Pong, but you know what I mean. Eliminate those lines. Get those underlying subconscious blocks away and reach for your goals. Don't let anything stop you, because if I would let problems stop me, I wouldn't be sitting here with you today, nor would you be at that job. So think about it. There's always something underlying. Aces are real. Do the work. We love you. Thanks for tuning in. Next week, right here, same station. Tune in.